Since the early 90s, the Jazz Cafe has established itself as one of London's most iconic live music venues, a hub of talent incorporating hip-hop, soul, funk and world music, and showcasing artists such as De La Soul, Adele, Marlena Shaw and Amy Winehouse. Chicago native Kate Simko has been affirming her status as one of dance music's standout artists over the past decade. After moving to London, she founded her latest project, the London Electronic Orchestra, fusing her background as a classical pianist and film composer with her signature electronic productions to take classical music to an innovative level. Point Blank head to the Jazz Cafe to talk live music and performance with LEO ahead of their debut show.
I love London for a lot of different reasons. It's my favorite city in the world for sure, and there's two main reasons for that. One is how vibrant it is in terms of the arts and culture, and secondly, it's the attitude of the people here. I think people in London versus New York are more collaborative and less competitive. So even tonight, for example, I'm working with an amazing designer, fashion designer, and he's doing an installation with me. And I've just had the experience over the past 5 years, whether it's in music or outside of music, that people here have a very positive attitude, and there's a lot of really genuine, creative people who do what they do because they love it, and that's their motivation.
I do orchestral playing, I do session work, and I play in London Electronic Orchestra. London is definitely a great place to be in to develop your skills and your versatility as a musician.
I'm from Moscow, and my education was really kind of hardcore classical, and I moved to London to do my bachelor course in Royal College of Music, where I met Kate essentially. The difference is not huge in classical world, but this seems like London Electronic Orchestra, for example, it does have its own niche in London, where I don't know if in Moscow that would be the same. You know, you either classical musician or you either doing something different.
The story of London Electronic Orchestra really was super organic, which has made me a lot more confident in a way on this journey. What happened was I was getting my master's at Royal College of Music, and I went in with the attitude and, you know, the open-minded idea that I was going to be willing to set aside my love of electronic music if need be, because I moved to London to study composition for orchestra and film. While I was studying, my composition professor learned more about my background, and you know, I met with him once a week, and he just sort of said right away, I mean, you know, you really should combine who you are as a musician and your sound with this new thing. Once he had said that, it opened it up to me to think about the orchestra in the same way that I think about synthesizers. You know, if I'm making an electronic song and, you know, sort of write in a bass line and you're like, okay, I'd hear a high melody here. Once I learned what the orchestral instruments do and how they work, you know, some of them being more rhythmic, or some of them having thicker textures, some of them layering together like strings, or they can be more like a pad sound. I was really thinking about using the orchestra in the same way that I would use an electronic palette.
I think what's really special about being part of LEO is it's really fun. I can put my skills as a cellist to good use, but it's very different from anything else that I do.
After DJing and traveling by myself, I never had a tour manager, so it was always like traveling by myself as a DJ to different countries, which I love, don't get me wrong. However, going to different cities and having these shows with other players and sharing that experience and seeing them also experience electronic music, sometimes for the first time, has been really, really exciting. So, you know, I remember one highlight for sure was when we did Boiler Room in Ibiza, and we did an outdoor set at a villa, and that was Jamie Jones. I think it was just Jamie Jones Boiler Room Ibiza, I guess. And after that, we went to DC-10, and I brought a couple of the players to DC-10, and we were like in the booth, and Jamie's playing, and they're just mind blown. And I remember the sound guy from DC-10 was like, we were all just sort of watching and just being like, wow, you know, I remember how that felt. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been really fun, you know, to bring them into a world that changed my life.
Nick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you, these are our contact microphones, and each one is the same for the cellos and violins. So what we need is just the leads on the other side to connect. So we've got the 2 cellos on this side of the stage and the violin on this side. So Camilla, here's your mic. We can do that in the background while I'm setting up my electronics. So I'll give everyone their mic for the instruments. We can mic those. They are sort of conveniently, but lodged in here. Okay, here we go. So here's another one. So it's like there's certain parts of the instruments that are more resonant, and so we have a putty. I'll show you now because I don't know if we're gonna do it later, but there's a putty here, and you fix the putty to the instrument, and it doesn't damage it, and then you place the contact microphone on it, and then our sound engineer has a lot more control. Because otherwise, if you can imagine, even if the microphone was near the instrument, you'd pick up the electronics and the sound in the room, which can create feedback and loop and everything you don't want, essentially. So yeah, the contact mics are great. Those are very helpful. So yeah, I'm just going to plug in here. I can get my stuff out of here. So from like basically down here, I don't think you can see it on the bottom, but we have a Radial Pro direct box, and essentially rather than having 8 little boxes with line in, it's a rack mount of 8. So we're able to put in the hard outputs of my computer from Ableton into the Radial Ableton. So we have this all numbered up, so it's pretty easy. I can look at the output numbers, the inputs, and take the outputs of my computer, go into the direct box, and then essentially rather than having, let's say, just like a stereo output of computer, we have every channel separate. Sometimes we're using a stereo channel, but for example, kick drum is just channel 1 mono, the bass is channel 2 mono, 3 and 4 we have percussion elements that are stereo that have some panning on them, 5 and 6 we have melodic elements, 7 and 8 we have effects and vocals that sort of layer on top of each other, and then 7 and 8 we have, sometimes we have some backing strings, just a layer behind the live single strings. So what I'm doing now is I'm connecting the outputs to go into the direct boxes, which will give our sound engineer a lot more control when it comes to mixing, essentially. So yeah, I'm just setting up my station here of what I do live, which is play the Nord Stage 2 keyboard, which has some effects here. Usually live, I'll use some delay on very simple chords. I don't want it to be too rhythmic or distracting from the other instruments, but on some of the songs where it's really minimal what I'm playing, I'll put on some reverb and some delay effects. So what I'm going to, and my Nord is not connected via Ableton. It's its own instrument, and just connected to a direct box outside of this rig, and that's how the instruments are connected as well. So our sound mixer is essentially mixing them on separate channels. So I'm going to just connect this. It's just a simple stereo out channel. Actually, white is left, left is white. So yeah, I'm just going to, for tonight, just small setup. This is not the largest stage, so I've put my laptop just on this little station here, connect it. But essentially, that's it. I mean, setup-wise, this is my setup, and then I do have some effects that I can do with an Ableton on individual channels. And again, those channels would be sent to our sound engineer separately. And then the sound engineer has reverb that he puts on the instruments, but besides that, the instruments are written for with instrumental techniques rather than putting effects on them, if that makes sense. So, you know, if we want a more delicate sound, that will be specified in the dynamics, in the bowing, whether it's, you know, maybe sometimes a light texture of pizzicato using your fingers rather than a bow. So yeah, again, we rehearse everything with the idea of the blend between the instruments and myself on keyboard being correct and the way that we want it to be, and rather than putting effects on live. So that's sort of it.
I think the most challenging part of performing with LEO is logistically sometimes getting the right balance with sound. Obviously, if we do an acoustic set, basically what you hear is what you get, but having to work with all the different channels and in-ears and making sure that all the levels are correct, that can sometimes take a little while, and obviously really open communication with whoever's on sound so that we're really happy with what we do here.
Now, I feel really privileged to be able to straddle both worlds and to have learned genuinely the tech side. And I know that's, you know, where Point Blank's coming from, and, you know, that gives you so much confidence and so much strength. So the fact that I do know our tech setup inside and out, and I don't need, you know, a tech guy or our sound guy to help me set up or do things, you know, so it's like I'm totally self-sufficient. And so I look at that more as an asset than like a challenge.
It's quite an experience. It's adrenaline. There are always many surprises. You never actually know what the vibe will be like in the hall, how things will go. So I like to react to things on the spot. It's actually undescribable, but I think you just feel it, the audience feels it, there is just something in the air, just how you feel connected with music, with people, with your colleagues on stage.
I think what makes a good live performance special is the electricity, the chemistry you get between the players. So when you see us play on stage, you'll definitely see us making eyes at each other, making a bit of a connection, because otherwise if we just turn up and play, you could do that with any old recording, basically. So the fact that the music is being produced live in front of you, I think that's what makes it really special.
I love performing, and, you know, for me, when I get on stage, I'm really excited. And I have to say, especially through this pregnancy as well, when I first found out, I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, what if I'm really tired, I'm staying up super late, I'm not even supposed to have caffeine, how am I gonna deal with it? But there is this energy you get when you walk on stage and you're in a room full of people who you know came there because they want to listen to your music and they're interested and they're open, and, you know, you're there to beyond entertain them, you're there to share, you know, your music with them, and, you know, everybody's kind of stepped away from their day-to-day life, and, you know, suddenly it's the evening, and all of us, including myself and everyone in the band, we're there to have a nice time and have a good night, try to make some memories, and yeah, I mean, it's amazing.